So we have horror movies where you can't make a noise, you can't see, and now you can't sleep. I mean, what's next? You can't use the restroom? Oh wait, no. I do not want to see that movie. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're going to dive into the Netflix original movie Awake. It's the latest horror/thriller film from Netflix, and it stars Gina Rodriguez, Ariana Greenblatt, and Lucius Hoyos, and it's directed by Raso. Now, the movie, if you haven't heard of it, is described just like this, and I'm going to read it exactly from IMDb. After a devastating global event wiped out all electronics and eliminated people's ability to sleep, a former soldier may have found a solution with her daughter. Now, if that sounds cool, you know, it's okay because it sounded cool to me, but I'll tell you whether or not the actual film is executed well or not. But before we get into that, if it is your first time here at the channel, guys, welcome to Real James, where I talk about movies like this early all the time. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, guys, and go ahead and smash that thumbs up button if you're a big fan of Netflix reviews just like this, and get loud in the comments if you've seen Awake, and let me know, did it actually surprise you or were you disappointed? I'll give you my answer to that question later. But guys, let's get right into what kind of works in Awake. And that really starts with the idea itself. It's actually pretty interesting. With so many apocalyptic, end-of-the-world type movies, especially movies like this, there are a dime a dozen. I mean, you look at A Quiet Place, which is great, don't get me wrong, and then you look at the less than successful Bird Box, but there are still so many different films out there with similar ideas, but this is at least a little bit unique. And the idea of what would happen if you physically couldn't sleep and is there a cure to save humanity is what brought me into the film. I didn't see any trailers actually, so I thought, okay, this could be one of those sleeper hits or a surprisingly fun horror thriller type movie. And some of the set pieces are actually pretty terrifying just to even think about. There are two different moments in this movie where I was really horrified by what we were seeing. The only thing is, it didn't really execute it all the way through, and I have to be honest, that's where the positives for the movie stop, because I did not like Awake at all. And those terrifying set pieces I just talked about, well, the movie, just like its premise, gives a good idea of what to expect, but it fails to execute it all the way through. Nothing about Awake really is very convincing, from the acting to the writing and even the direction. This movie is just one of those unnatural films in all the worst ways. So let's start with the writing, guys. There are some lines of dialogue here that made me scratch my head and groan out loud. Whether it's a younger sibling talking about their older brother's sex life, which is totally gross, or when it comes to Gina Rodriguez being able to identify the fact that there are satellites in the sky and that they aren't shooting stars, like, how do you know that? And honestly, she knows everything. It's one of those movies where the plot is catering towards the main character so much to where you just know nothing bad can happen to them. And it sets up a scenario where there's a lot of plot armor, and that's exactly what you get from this movie, where the stakes are never really that real, and that kind of sucks. It completely took me out of the experience. And then there's the actual thrills in this movie. There's an early moment in a church setting that actually got me a little bit, and I thought, okay, this is gonna be the really big moments, the turnaround moment that the film desperately needed, and we're still in the first act. But unfortunately, it didn't really work for me. It wasn't executed well, and they just want to breeze right through. That's the thing, this film speeds through a lot of its set pieces that are meant to be terrifying, and that really doesn't allow me as an audience member to get immersed in the movie. And there's absolutely zero pace to this film. They didn't really want their audience to be ingrained into this world, it seems like, because on paper it seems like a horrifying place to live, but when you watch the film, it just feels so lifeless. So all of that aside, I really was hoping that Gina Rodriguez, who I believe is a good actor, would lift this film. But honestly, this script does her a complete disservice. I mean, it really does a disservice to the entire cast, because none of the writing for these characters is actually effective. I mean, the character development is completely expositional, and we learn about some very important events in our characters' lives through a quick 4, 5, even 6-second bit of dialogue, and that's not really, I would say, good for the film, especially when you're trying to make the viewer feel claustrophobic. You want them to be in this moment. That's what A Quiet Place does very well, both parts 1 and 2, but in Awake, I never felt that. And speaking of the script, guys, I have one question. Did this go through any sort of rewrites? Because it desperately needed them. There are scenes here where the movie is telegraphing its every single movement. I mean, everything in the film is just foreshadowing after foreshadowing. Can we leave something up to the imagination? Is there any mysterious element to the story? And the answer to that is no, there's not. And by the end, I I don't get it, guys. I mean, the ending here is so bad. I didn't think that it worked at all. It wasn't satisfying, and not only that, it made me feel like I wasted my time with this film. And I at least thought they would stick the landing a little bit, and it would present a decent idea and make me think of why I even was interested in the movie in the first place. But unfortunately, Awake is one of those Netflix movies that, yes, you can skip. So overall, you guys, yes, Awake is a complete disappointment to me. It's one of those films that have potential to be a decent summer streaming film where you can put it on over the weekend with some pizza, your significant other, and just watch it and be a little terrified. But unfortunately, I found myself laughing at so many of the inconsistencies in this movie, so many of the missteps, and I really wasn't locked into this film, and that's really due to the script, to the writing, and yes, the bad acting. So yes, guys, I am really disappointed by Awake. It's a movie that I had a decent amount of hope for, and I thought it would be fun, like I said, but it really isn't, and it will rank in the bottom third of my top movies of the year list. But guys, I need to know what you have to say about this, so go ahead and get loud in the comments down below, and I hope I can bring you guys some more positive reviews as the year goes on. So don't miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and again, tap on that bell. Alrighty guys, well, I'm gonna go and just watch A Quiet Place again. I mean, the formula there just works. Alrighty y'all, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.